Hey, this is the Entertainment Advice Channel. What I want to talk about today is how we can make movies better, okay? And for this video, I will discuss three main problems a lot of movies tend to have, that if we were to get rid of these three main problems, movies in general would be a lot more enjoyable of an experience for everyone to enjoy, as well as something that not only would be more enjoyable, but would also save the film industry from the state it's in. So anyway, let's get started. So when it comes to what we can do to make films better, movies, whatever you like to say, better, the first thing to do when it comes to making movies better is simply one of the biggest misconceptions people have about movies and the biggest mistakes people have when it comes to making movies, which is making the plot too complex. Okay? Now, this is one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people have, even filmmakers who actually don't suck, is this exact problem. Making the film plot too complex. Okay? Now, when it comes to making a good plot, the best way to make a good quality plot is to focus more on the actual idea of the plot. Like, what makes an actual story interesting, instead of just focusing on how can I not just, well, not even that, just focusing on how can I make this plot as complex as possible, instead of trying to figure out what's the most interesting scenario you can possibly come up with, and so on and so forth. That is one of the biggest mistakes even the best filmmakers tend to make, which is focusing on making the story plot too complex. As the problem with making the story plot too complex is it reduces the ability for people to enjoy the movie. As when you make a plot too complex, it makes it harder for casual people, to enjoy the film, okay? Because for a lot of it, you don't even know what's going on for the movie, and not only do you not know what's going on for a lot of the movie, it encourages people to make false interpretations of what's going on, and they think they know it, but they end up being completely wrong, which just encourages a lot of toxicity and even a lot of straight up pretentiousness. Okay, that is one of the biggest problems with movies when it comes to enjoyability. Because if I want to enjoy watching a movie, I want to understand what's going on so I can really comprehend what's going on. If I don't understand what's going on, then how am I going to enjoy it? Okay, truth be told, because to come up with a good plot, you don't have to be like a freaking savant to make one. You just have to make one that makes sense, the most interesting scenario, and everyone can agree this is actually really interesting, instead of focusing on some trivial shit, about like, oh, I'm just going to make it so really hard to understand. Because just because the story is more complex doesn't make the movie any more entertaining, and obviously alienates a massive portion of your audience you can have, and through alienation, it encourages them to want to look for movies that are poor in quality and are just simply action, smash, and blah 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 movies like a Transformer movies is. So if you want to save movies in general, focus us on making a plot too complex, make it straightforward and easy to understand. It doesn't mean dumb it down. It just means like I can at least understand what's going on. And trust me, you do that, movies will be a lot better. So that's the first point I have to make. The second point I have to make is making things in the movies, particularly character development or any part of the movie, too drawn out. Now, this is another big problem I see happen in a lot of movies that actually reduces the enjoyability factor. Now, especially when it comes to living in the era we live in, where we have things like TikTok and so on and so forth, that have further shortened the attention spans of people dramatically. The truth of the matter is people don't have concentration like they had in the past, okay? It's gotten bad, and it's going to continue to get worse, okay? So as a result of that, we need to start focusing on making things, less drawn out. And even aside from that, it just never was that good of an idea. Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to movies, you tend to see this cliche happen, especially for some of the best movies imaginable, such as movies watching um a movie, like you'll be watching a movie and it'll be like having a character development scene where not only can you not really understand what they're saying, they're speaking in such a low volume tone, like which borders along the lines of whispering. It also comes down to the fact that they'll spend like a particular scene where they just like have a character like talking back and forth for like 10 minutes straight, and just a bunch of things that kind of make it kind of boring, if anything. Okay, they focused like they might have a 25-minute part where they just focus on character development. Okay, and don't get me wrong, character development is important, but if you're making it like that long, it makes it more likely it's gonna kind of get boring. And I see this happen in a lot of movies, all movies all the time. Even for the better age of Hollywood, you know, like decades ago, even they tend to focus too much on just trying to make things too drawn out. Whether it could be character development, you know, like the backstory of the person, or you know, or maybe they might, for example, they might even make something else drawn out, like for all you know, even like a preparation for an action scene or preparation for doing this, and it kind of bores the audience. Like if you're making a movie, you can make it dramatic, you can make it enjoyable and full of a lot of atmosphere and substance throughout the whole thing. You don't have to have these extremely long periods of time of character development, okay, or any part for that matter that's just drawn out, like that lasts too long. You know, like 15, 20 something minutes where not much happens. You want to make each part of the film a reasonable period of time instead of making it too drawn out where it kind of gets a bit kind of boring, in all honesty. And that's another big problem with movies, okay? Is that they just make things too drawn out, and when you question people about this, they'll just simply say, oh, so what, you just want to watch a movie where it's just full of action all the time? Not necessarily. I just think that part was too long and it's kind of boring. And even when you watch those movies outside of the theater, you're thinking, oh god, I hate this part, and so on and so forth. And that's what I'm trying to get across here. It is boring and it is irritating. And that's the truth of the matter. Those parts, so stuff like that for that matter, okay? So like, obviously, you know, it just kind of ruins experience. Besides, at this day and age, a lot of people are just going to fast forward through those parts anyway, which kills the experience of watching a movie. But whether it's fast forwarding, it's going to become a habit, and you're going to spend a lot of time just fast forwarding through a lot of stuff just to get to so-called good action parts, or just in general, for that matter, more interesting. So it's like, why do you even have to do that? And that's a big problem I have with movies, and it's a cliche that needs to stop soon. And that's the second thing I want. The third thing is having a better balance between plot and action. Because when it comes to movies, there's two main things in this business: plot and an action. There's different subdivisions for each thing, but mostly it comes down to those two fundamental things, okay? Where you focus on the story, the plot part, and everything from building atmosphere and character development falls in that category, to of course the action scenes where you just focus on the characters fighting against each other. Okay? Those are the two main parts that make up any movie, okay, for that matter, okay? For that matter, truth be told, okay? So when you work on those two main things, for a movie, you have to make sure there's a good balance. Because some movies, like some of those 2000s blockbuster movies where they just had a jam-packed full of action, a lot of that stuff is just kind of comical, because it's kind of like, I just watch a movie just to simply see people fight. Like, that's kind of boring, you know? Like, it's cool to watch, but it's just kind of silly at the same time. But like, or it could be movies where they just focus on, like, you'll be watching a movie that's like 2 to 3 hours long, and there's like 10 minutes of an action scene, and that's boring too, even more boring for that matter. So you have to have a good balance, okay? You have to have a good balance between those two worlds, if anything, in order to make sure a movie's more enjoyable and entertaining to watch. If you don't have a good balance between those two things, you know, your movies are gonna suck and are not going to be enjoyable. And from what I've seen, a lot of movies, if not most movies, from what I've experienced, tend to have one of those two of an imbalance. Okay, so anyway, you have to have a balance between that, and that is all I have to say. Simply put it, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video and videos like this, remember to thumb this video up and hit the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say, and simply put it, later.